the COP this year, providing world leaders with stories that speak to the urgency of the climate crisis and showcase the diversity of pathways to creating resilient futures. The exhibits that we have outside the pavilion are just some of the submissions we've gathered from the Philippines and Africa. If you've not seen it yet, please do take some time after this event to go outside and check out some of those exhibits. I also encourage you to take your Rewrite COP postcards and stickers available at the Rewrite corner at the back. Those are all free. Our panel discussion today explores how artistic and poetic approaches are able to support the work of climate activists to push for meaningful and systematic changes. To officially open the panel, I'm honored to call on stage Abena Takiwa Asamoah Okyere, Technical Advisor to the Minister for Finance and Economic Planning of the Republic of Ghana. We are honored to be joined by experts on art, science, and critical climate policies. Prince Okyere, you can also come to the stage. Prince promotes and puts up exhibitions showcasing artwork from Nigeria, specifically the Niger Delta oil spill and environmental degradation. He's an organizer of the Niger Delta Climate Change Exhibition in London and at COP26 in Glasgow. Our next panelist is Prince Yeboah Okyere from the Strategic Youth Network for Development, or SYND. He's project lead for Forest Restoration Project. Our next panelist is Angelo Kairos Dela Cruz, Executive Director of Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities. Kairos leads ICSC in tackling various pressing issues on climate finance access and accountability. He led the campaign for the passage of People's Survival Fund in the Philippines. He also leads the organization's convenership of GCF Watch, a Southern CSO-led initiative established to help promote and accelerate civil society readiness to engage the Green Climate Fund. Okay. All right, and now to open the panel discussion, I'd like to invite Abena, if you could please address us before we proceed with the panel.
Hi, friends, allies, and fellow storytellers. We stand at a crossroads. The halls of power echo with charts and graphs, but the cries of the unheard go unheard. Today, we rewrite the script. As COP negotiations make decisions that have real consequences on the most vulnerable to the climate crises, our event today amplifies the voices of those marginalized and excluded by this conference. Rewrite COP, rewriting our future with arts and science in climate policy spaces, brings culture and the arts into climate discussions. Sprouted from the When Is Now campaign, launched by the Climate Vulnerable Forum in 2021, Rewrite COP is rooted in the conviction that creative inquiry and storytelling is vital to tackling the climate crisis. Our goal is to provide a space for a broader range of people to tell their stories that reflect the lived experiences of people across the world. By weaving together these narratives, we hope to foster a more people-centric, equitable, and human rights-driven approach to climate action. Let us embark on this journey of rewriting our future, where arts meets policy and where every voice has the power to make a difference. And now to conclude with a touch of the spirit that brings us all together here this morning. In a world where the winds of change do blow, we gather here to let our creative spirit flow. From every corner of this wondrous earth, we unite in purpose, giving our visions birth. With a brush, a pen, or a heartfelt word, a message for action will be seen and heard. In the dance of science and art, so bright, together we'll turn the tide and light the night. On behalf of the government of Ghana, thank you for joining our call for a new climate promise.
Thank you so much for those powerful words, Abina. Now, before we commence with our panel discussion, I'd like to call up our final panelist. That's Ewi Stephanie Lama. Could you please join us on stage? Ewi is a United Nations Agora winner and a climate reality leader, director of programs at the Pan-African Center for Climate Policy, where she focuses on developing entrepreneurship support programs that facilitate representation and channeling of rural voices of women and youth at national and international levels. We also have Mayor Alfredo Coro. Yes, if you can please help us bring a chair on stage, yes. Mayor Alfredo is a climate reality leader, local chief executive of the municipality of Del Carmen in Siargao Islands in the Philippines. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir. So let's begin. In the climate change movement, we often hear about the term climate justice. I'd like to get your perspectives on what climate justice means and what role you think art can play in achieving climate justice. Mayor, should we begin with you?
Good morning to everyone. It's really good that for the first time, at the very least, COP recognized local actions as the key to addressing climate change. And climate justice is exactly what it's all about. It's about recognizing the small local actions that are being done in our communities, in our homes, by each and every one of us as we move to a safer space that we all want to move to. You know, we only have one planet, and recognizing the actions that each of us can contribute to ensuring that this planet continues to be our home is the justice that we all want to see.
Thank you very much. You can.
Good morning, everyone. For me, climate justice is a collective recognition that despite the fact that climate change impacts are affecting everyone, it's not affecting everyone in the same level. It's a realization that some countries, some vulnerable people really had it worse compared to the rest of the world, which also means that in terms of in terms of arts, in terms of communications, I truly believe that one of our failures, if I can put it that way, is the failure of communicating to those who are actually in the front lines of this fight. Failing to communicate what it actually means to a farmer, for example, to a fisher folk, what does climate impacts would mean in terms of their daily lives, in terms of their children's lives in the next 10 years and so on. So for me, climate justice is about inclusivity. We cannot discuss climate justice while, disenfranchising disenfranchising some people, particularly some of the already vulnerable sectors in our countries. Thank you.
Thank you.
For me, I believe that climate justice, everybody is suffering the impact of climate change, but some people are more vulnerable than others. Some people are polluting more. So we believe that in achieving climate justice, those who are polluting more will commit more resources so that the vulnerable people can also adapt or mitigate the impact of climate change. So this is when the art and storytelling come in, so that the artists can be able to amplify the impact of climate change by the vulnerable communities, so that the developed nations will be able to see that these are the impact that our activities are causing for vulnerable nations. So let us commit more resources so that at the end of the day, less vulnerable communities can also get climate justice. Thank you.
For me, my name is Tracy Dorita. climate justice is pushing for equity. Climate justice is let it be equal. Climate justice is allowing the people who actually have the resources to actually benefit. Like me, I'm taking an example from my local community. We are the one clamoring for climate justice because our own community in the Niger Delta is being eroded, and our fishes are gone, our farmland, our youths are gone, but the people from the west are still living broken over our community. So we are the one calling for climate justice. If there is justice, there will be intervention. If there is justice, there will be restoration. If there is justice, there will be restoration. So if you take from us our resources and you destroy it and you are divesting, I think that is injustice. So we are calling for climate justice. And let there be restoration. Let there be equity for the good of the people. Putting the people first above profit. And I want to see as climate justice. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. For me, climate justice, I'll agree with Prince. It's equity, and I will also add to the fact that it is creating balance and ensuring that the resources are channeled to the right people at the right time in the right place. And it also ensures that a platform is set where people who are not able to access what has to be accessed is given to them so that they can be able to get to a point where they feel belonging, they feel like they are important within their communities, and they also feel like they have a say and they can contribute to the changes within their societies. So climate justice is the ability to give everyone a platform that enables them to rise up or to create a balance at the level at which they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ewi. I'd like to hear from one of our
panelists about how art has been used to successfully advocate for climate action, or how art has impacted your own work on climate change.
For me, we actually come to the conclusion because picture speaks more than 1,000 words. So what you see, you remember quickly. And we've gotten to the age where people find it difficult to read volumes of material. So we put all our stories into a pictorial form to tell the story, where they are, how they are. If you go to our website, I'll go to our learning, you see the stories that happen, like the flooding. How people are telling the story of this flooding. We actually go to the community, get this input, how it affects them. And one touching story there was a child who was coming from school, and the mother and the child were going, and the flood just came suddenly and take the mother. So the mother really rescued the child. So the child had to go. And we painted that story, and we call it the flood. So this was able to tell a story in that community that mobilized young people to come out, to begin to say there's need for them to work on the drainage system, there's need for us to begin to control our water circulation. So it was a story that actually painted straight to an issue. And this issue connects the dots. So that is our visual activism, trying to use what is actually happening, putting it into an art to tell the story of the impact that just occurred. Something occurred, but most of you will not come to my village to come see this impact. So we want to connect that dot. We want to bridge that gap. So our artistic work help us connect both what is happening in the local community, bringing them to the central page. That is why in Glasgow, we took all those issues to Glasgow. And you cannot be talking about climate change mitigation or adaptation when the local communities who felt the brunt of this impact are not being carried along. And most of the rooms you see this negotiation, collaboration, discussions, people who actually fear this impact, they are not in those rooms. So how do you now build a design without people who originally feel this impact of climate change? So that is why we are trying to use this art to remind them that, come, there is need for you to connect with those frontline communities who are actually the people that's supposed to be heard their voices are not heard. Their voices are not being considered. And you say you want, that's why today we are seeing false solution everywhere because it's not connecting from the context. So that is how we use art to play this design. That is how we use it to tell the story around the Niger Delta, picking it from each community, what these impacts are, and we demonstrate it through art. So you could see more of that on our webpage. You will see the story, and it will touch you. It will touch you. It will just take you straight to there, and verified publications that tell that story, not a fabricated story, and you just, okay, it actually happened. Or we want to talk about the issue around soot. Soot in Port Harcourt. If you wake up in the morning, your cars are black, your nose are black, your faces are black, you don't wear white because of refining of this crude oil and also illegal refining as well. And that is reducing our health expenses to now to like 42%, 42 years. If you got into that stage, you are now an adult, so you can die because we are inhaling bad quality of air, and we call it the black snow. Because it goes on and on to tell these issues the way they are at the grassroots. Thank you.
Prince, thank you very much for that perspective. And I guess that leads me to my next question about the opportunities here at COP28, for example, where we can use art and humanities in finding a common ground for critical negotiation points that are being tackled here at COP28, in particular issues of funding adaptation actions, loss and damage in the global south, and of raising the mitigation targets of high-emitting countries. How can we use art and humanities to amplify, for example, the fair share principle or climate action? So in essence, like, what is the place of storytelling when it comes to talks here at COP28? Yeah, you can take it.
So based on our experience in terms of trying to use storytelling, to use multiple art forms, be it music, be it movies, be it, even social media and your TikTok and your Instagrams, these drive the people to want more from whoever is going to supposedly take the financing, take the action to be able to drive the change in your community. It's very, as Prince has mentioned, it's very difficult to bring everyone here to our communities. So the only way we could do that is to share with them our experience so that they would understand why we are demanding such actions. And art is a beautiful way of doing that. We see it in movies, how they drive communities to want more. We see it even again in social media, because that's the most popular platform right now, to drive people to be in the direction where you want to be. And these actions of using visual arts, music, movies can drive the behavior of our negotiators towards the direction we want. And I think that's the power now of COP, with a lot of the youth attending. I think for the first time, there's a lot of representation from the youth, indigenous peoples, women, a lot of these small organizations that are out there to be able to be heard. They use these different platforms and using art and amplifying the message because it's shareable. It's easy now to connect, because you recognize that these particular photos, actions, art out there are relatable to me because they happen to me. And I think that's the beauty of what we have right here with all these artistic opportunities to be able to, again, amplify the voices of the different race, different regions, different countries, so that those those negotiators would at least, at the very least, hear our voice and be recognized.
Thank you very much. Anyone have anything to add on that?
Yes, just to add to that, one of the things about art is the fact that it touches the heart. It does not just speak to your mind. And for example, we have the documentary that was produced by the African Climate Reality Project, African Voices for Africa's Forest, which is a documentary. Though I was like the main figure in the documentary, it spoke to me more than even those who were watching it all the time. And each time this documentary came on, I actually found myself crying, not because I just wanted to cry, but it was the message that was being passed from it. And it was actually about, the documentary is actually about my community. It tells the story of what is happening there. And like you said, we can't bring the community to events like COP. But with those stories, we can be able to depict how the community looks like and what things the community is actually going through and what solutions we are trying to put up to be able to solve these community problems. And that is what art does. It captures a whole long situation and summarizes it into a picture, into a movie, into a speech, into something really small, but that goes to your heart. And when our hearts are touched, our communities can be having the solutions that we seek. The reason some of our communities are not experiencing the solutions that they are looking after is because our hearts are not being touched. We are talking with our minds and we are being very political with what we are doing. But it's time we take up our hearts to do action and not just our minds. And that is what art does.
Okay, just to add up, I know that art, there's emotional connection with art. So people see art and they are connected. So this emotional resonance from art can bring up a deeper connection to environmental issues, in the sense that if I see an image and depict, based on how the image is depicting, I feel connected to it, though I might not be there. Let's look at the flooding that occurred at Butagan due to the opening of the Akosumo Dam. Many people were not there, but because they saw the art, because they saw the images, they were connected. So at the end of the day, they all came in to provide relief support. Though you might not be at an area where an incident is happening, but through the actions of the storytellers, the art communicators, you're able to feel connected, your emotions are triggered, and you're able to mobilize to take an action to ensure that the right things are done.
Angela, we've heard a lot about, the emotional connection to art. But in your opinion, how can we ensure that art is not simply seen as a feel-good or a shock value addition to climate activism, but is actually used to drive change?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I won't say it's an easy one. It's a difficult question. I mean, for ICSE, for the more than a decade that I've been with the institution, one of the things that I started working on, as mentioned earlier, is the passage of the People's Survival Fund. The PSF, it's the National Adaptation Fund of the Philippines, and everything started way back then. Everything started largely because of a photo exhibit that does not show that refused to show victims, but it actually focuses on ordinary people living ordinary lives and being affected by climate impacts on the everyday basis. So the exhibit was presented in the Philippine Congress and in the Philippine Senate, and slowly legislators came around thinking that climate change is not as trivial as a subject that can be separated in a chapter in a national plan. It has to be integrated. And climate financing, direct access climate financing, became an actionable thing for everyone. And that started from an artistic expression through a photo exhibit. So I think art is not owned by anyone. At the very same time, it's one of the easiest platforms that everyone uh, can identify with. It's available, but then we also have to make sure that we also provide the next steps, right? So if we refuse, and I think everyone in this room is refusing to just become victims, like the photos, become photo subjects of how climate change is victimizing the whole world. I think everyone is surviving, and hopefully, if we can have enough artistic expression of how resilience, how thriving looks like, I think the world will follow suit eventually. Thank you.
Can I add?
May I add a little bit? I'm actually the first one that accessed the fund that they created, and In 2021, our area was hit by Super Typhoon Rai that basically flattened everything that we worked for over 10 years. And the good thing about that experience of Super Typhoon, it was the first, it's a Category 5 typhoon. And growing up, I never had a Category 5 typhoon in my lifetime, only recently. Uh, Prior to the typhoon, it took us 10 years using various forms of art to convince our community to rehabilitate a very large mangrove forest that was full of everything that was about illegal activities. So we had a hard time communicating and changing behaviors of our own community because they felt dynamite fishing was easy money. Trying to cut all the mangroves was easy money. But it took a lot of effort by communicating through art. That was the only way we could think of through the youth, and the youth communicating back to their families that this is the future we want. And so when Super Typhoon Rai hit our town, we never had experienced the storm surge that everybody was expecting, allowing us to have a very, very low fatality rate. For a Category 5 typhoon that also happened a few years ago, around 2011 with Super Typhoon Haiyan, comparing the 10,000 people whose lives were lost in that typhoon, and in our experience, roughly around only 15. That's the power of communicating so that people were changed their behavior. Although, because we are talking of climate change, although impacts will not be felt immediately, the power of communication is that it sustained the interest of the people. So when it actually mattered, our nature-based solution was there for all of us.
Thank you very much to our esteemed panel. Looking at the lens of climate justice, I think it's clear that art can definitely speak to and amplify the collective experiences of those bearing the brunt of our planet's unraveling. You've made some excellent points on the need to integrate culture work in weaving connections between the global north and the global south among communities across the world. And these connections are important to advance the notion of equity, fair share, and common but differentiated responsibilities into the policies, actions, and initiatives we're doing to address the climate crisis. I'd like to end this event by sharing with you one of the powerful Rewrite COP submissions that we received from the Philippines. We've asked Ewi to read the poem Kali from Christian Glomar de Coronado in response to Rewrite COP's call for creative responses to Nicolas Hercelin's On the Hills East of France.
Thank you very much, Aurelie. The poem I'll be reading is Kali, written by Christian Gloma de Coronado. Please, I want you to listen to it and understand fully, put yourself into the situation, and walk along this path with me. Walking on the banks of a once river, I saw a familiar gaze. A woman draped with brown and green, carrying a branch as her staff, though dried. Her hair disheveled, her walk erratic. Stumbled on a tiny yet persistent rock. Perhaps one of the survivors, I monologued. Seeing her pitiful figure hurts me. Why? I do not know. Watching her struggle, I decided to help her. I came to her side and held her arm. Metallic. Is she a woman? A machine? I do not know. Then silently I followed her and noticed a black ooze following her too. I felt nauseous. She spoke, but in such a strange language that I know not. Yet so I felt I understood everything. I felt her speaking of her pain, her struggles, her cries, her cries. Then I held her other arm, the hand of flesh and blood and saw her memory. I saw her raped by men, men of influence, men of power, men that she loved, kept her captive, kept her alive. She wanted to die, but she can't. She tried to warn the men to stop. She screamed, but they just see the pleasure of it all until one day it happened. Yes, she lost her sanity and murdered the men. Her abuser became the abused. She was bathed, and now she's sekhmet. She has become death. For the next half hour, I just stared at the nothingness. Then she rose, showing her multi-armed form, moved her lips beside my ear, and whispered, I did not cry for myself. I cried for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ewi. A powerful poem there. Thank you for sharing that with us. We've come to the end of our event, but our call to action here today is for climate policies designed for the realities of the most vulnerable to gain traction through public support, awareness, and mobilization. We encourage everyone in this room to take a postcard at the back. And on that postcard, you can reflect on the responsibility that you have as an individual, as a leader, as an advocate, and remind yourselves that the decisions made in this conference will determine the fate of many communities and economies around the world. I'd also like to invite you to join us this afternoon. We'll have another Rewrite COP panel at 3 p.m. at the Sri Lanka Pavilion. Thank you all very much for joining us this morning. To our panelists, before you leave, we'd just like to take a photo with all of you here on stage, so you can stand on the stage and we'll take a photo. Thank you very much.